Hey, Campers Inn team, it's July and this is our monthly update. I'm going to dive right in because we have a lot to cover. It's been a few weeks, a little bit over a month since last put one of these out. So the first is a couple administrative items. One is on the culture surveys. As everybody at Campers Inn knows, if you've been here for more than a year, we do a culture survey each year, measuring the satisfaction of our team, how we're doing aligning with our culture. And we like to do a baseline survey for new stores. We have a bunch of new stores. So if you haven't done yet and you're one of the newer stores, Collinsville, Toms River, Troy, Arizona, please go ahead and take that survey. Also, a couple other things is we have some training coming up towards the end of the year. So the Prodaptive course, all managers need to go through our Prodaptive course, which is also known as Leading with Success and Satisfaction. That starts September 6th. Please send it up through your management chain. It is virtual, a few hours a week for 8 weeks. And then on November 1st, we have a Hiring Winners, which is a interviewing hiring course that talks about behavioral interviews. It's a really great course. So that's 6 weeks starting November 1st. Same sort of thing. It's online, virtual. So those are the administrative items. So a lot to cover in the other fronts. It's been a moment since we talked. We had a whole bunch of stores come on board the last few months, and new stores. We have 3 new ones in Arizona. We have Dillon's in New Jersey. We started up Collinsville. We finished the acquisition of our Troy store, formerly Arborgast RV Depot. So a lot of new stores coming on board. Welcome aboard to the Campers Inn team. If you're seeing this for the first time, it's basically a way of putting the message out to the team on what's going on in the market, Campers Inn, what we're doing, things that we're changing. So welcome aboard to all the new stores. And let's talk about what we're seeing out there in the market, because that's usually how I start these. So last time I talked, I reviewed that message, and we had talked about it was slowing to below 2021 levels, but still above 2019 levels. What was interesting over the last few months, we've seen the volume really kind of similar to that. So 2021 levels came back from there, and then it's depending on your store, where they're seeing it still above 2019 levels, at 2019 levels, a few stores just below 2019 levels, and what we're seeing in the market is really similar. So we're seeing kind of stabilize right around there. Obviously, everybody knows there's some economic things going on that are headwinds, and then the tailwinds is that we still have some of the more interest in our industry that's driving some tailwinds. So we have these two forces going on, and we're just adjusting to it. I've been traveling recently, and on a question I received a bunch was, what are our manufacturers doing? And they are bringing back production. Some of you may have seen just recently in the news, Keystone closed a couple plants after talking to the president of Keystone. It was a couple of their overflow plants. So I can't remember one of the brands, but like Cougar, they had an overflow plant trying to ramp up for COVID production, and they shuttered that one. So they basically have contracted back to their core. Other manufacturers are expected to follow suit if they have overflow plants. If they don't, they're probably just going to lighten it up on the production schedule, like go to four-day-a-week schedules, and they are bringing it back to basically manage the production to what's going on in the market. Because all of you remember, during the last couple of years, a lot of plants have opened up, and I don't know what the number is, but it's probably north of a couple dozen new plants have opened up. Well, if production comes back to more normalized levels, or demand comes back to more normalized levels, well, then what happens is some of those plants either have to close, or they have to close the older, outdated ones and move fully to the new ones. And that's what we're seeing, is just adjustments for the manufacturers getting production in line with the demand that's going on. Dealers are adjusting their inventories as well. Obviously, if demand slows down, you still have the pipeline coming in for the higher demand for a period of time, and then you got to adjust the inventory down, and that's what we've seen. So we're in that position as well. So what's Campers Inn doing? A lot of you probably said, well, if the market slowed down a little bit, why are we still getting all these units in and everything? And the answer is really simple, is that as a rule, Campers Inn, we don't cancel like things that are online, like the schedule, without going into all the details. we're trying to be a good partner to the manufacturers. If we give them a solid PO, we don't want to retract that. There are cases where we may try to move things around with them and whatnot, but generally speaking, we viewed it as high integrity to keep what we placed on order and is scheduled. So that pipeline's starting to slow a little bit because we cut that off a few months ago. Not cut it off. We slowed down the pipeline a little bit ago. In a company like ours, you can't cut it off because we sell a lot of RVs, so we need them continuing to roll in. So we slowed down the pipeline a few months ago, and we're going to see our inventories trend in a more favorable direction throughout the remainder of the year. And really, this isn't like a panic moment. I hope you're not taking that out of it. But what it is we've got to adjust our inventory level to get in line with the market demand. So for us, that's getting our inventory to like a 3-turn plus, making sure that we do it by brand and by product. So there's a lot of things that have to happen to make sure that we get our inventory in line. So right now, as a company, we're taking a store-by-store approach. We've already reached out to our general managers and sales management teams and asked them to put together some updated plans on a by-brand basis on what to adjust and what goals that we have to get to. And we're working through that as a company. And I'm confident that we'll get there through the remainder of the year. So a little bit too much inventory now because we were ordering based on obviously really good demand levels. Demand dropped off over a few months. You still get that pipeline that comes in. You got a little bit overstocked, and then you have to make the plans to get the inventory in line. Nothing really new for our industry. Anybody that's been in our industry a moment has been through these cycles before. So we are in that adjustment phase, and that is the number one big focus that we have right now. Okay, and then as we look towards going forward, like what does the market look like? Kind of like I've said it a few times in some of the past messages, it's really tough to predict the market in this environment. There's just been a lot of factors that we haven't seen before. So what we know right now is that the demand is still pretty good. It's still good compared to history, like pre-pandemic. So even here in July, we actually saw an uptick from on web traffic, e-leads, that sort of thing from May and June on a same-store basis. So that looks pretty good. So we're adjusting, and we'll adjust with the rest of the industry in order to be in a favorable position by the end of the year, especially towards open house in September. So one of our other big focuses is on financial sustainability on that side of the values. So on the financial sustainability, we all know that we've invested a ton into our company in dealership upgrades. We've remodeled some stores. We've done a ton of things over the last few years in order to better ourselves. So we've been very fortunate financially as a company. So we've been reinvesting incredibly in our stores. And so what we're asking our stores and what we're asking ourselves to do is to wind down the big projects. If we can wait on spends, we're asking to wait right now, and basically a more frugal spending pattern. So what does that mean? It means that let's let the market adjust a little bit, and let's see where it's going, and let's get to a more frugal spending pattern overall, which doesn't mean stop spending on everything, right? We have things that we need. If it's a safety item, those are really important. If it's things that we need at the store, we've got to keep on doing them. But overall, the message is that a lot of these big projects that we've had where we've really been benefiting and investing back in our stores, we can probably delay them for a little bit and take a wait and see approach. And we're doing the same thing on acquisitions. So we just went through a big round of acquisitions, and they're on board. They're doing a good job getting on board with the Camper Zone systems. And what we're looking for is you'll probably still see us potentially acquire or start up a store on the real estate side. There's a few that we already have in the works on the real estate side. But what you'll see is we're going to be a lot more picky about it in this sort of environment. And once again, some of this is just going back to the business practices of a few years ago. So for all of us, it's an adjustment period, making sure that we have the good spending patterns, making sure that we're really questioning the different things that we do, whether it's at a store level and it's spend on office supplies to a new project and a renovation that we're doing at a store to whether we're doing an acquisition. We're going to be pickier about the projects that we do in this sort of environment. That doesn't mean we don't do them at all. It just means that we are going to be a lot more analytical about what we choose to do. So the third big focus, so once again, the first two is inventory. The second one was really thinking about financial sustainability and making sure that we are being frugal where we need to be on the financial sustainability. And then the third one is, as the market normalizes, a lot of our stores got away from really great best practices in 2020 and 2021. And one of the reasons is that the markets, spiked. Our people had to solve problems really quick. In some cases, the people became the processes instead of having good processes to utilize. So what we're asking is that those best practices that we might have strayed away from, we get back to. So for new stores, that's about getting them, up to speed on our best practices with as little impact on in season as possible. Because obviously we could go and change everything, but in the middle of season, that's probably not the best time to do it for a whole host of reasons. You all can think of them. But anyway, so for new stores, it's getting up to speed on the basic best practices and moving them favorably over time. For existing stores, really there's a number of best practices that we need to get back to. And the best practices are the ones that come right out of the various manuals. The one I'm holding here is the Parts and Service Handbook. We've got a handbook in each department. So for sales, things that come to mind is like the interview. Are we sitting down with the customer, doing a good interview? Are we going through some of the questions on the locator sheet and asking the customer, how they intend on using their RV, and then going up to the sales manager and doing a manager checkpoint before going out to the lot? Those are the building blocks of our road to the sale and in the sales side. And then when we come and we sell the RV, right, are we presenting the pre-owned peace of mind package on the pre-owned units? Are we doing a good scheduling and service and walking back to the service counter and scheduling service when we sell an RV? Are we breaking down the deals on the sales side? Once we have a deal, the way it's laid out in the admin manual. The admin manual actually talks about which folders go where and what paperwork goes where. Are we actually doing those things? Or are people still the process? And so we got to work on those best practices. On the service side, there's some core best practices that we're making sure are implemented at all the stores. And that's the daily WIP meetings, the work in process meetings, daily flagging, the service scheduling, which includes the delivery board, right? Utilizing promise dates. We got to preload those bins with the work confirmed and staged at the end of the day. So those bins should be preloaded before the techs get in. And focusing on clocking accuracy, right? So those are some of the basics in service. And then in parts, are we receiving the parts when they come in? Are we waiting? Are we doing the weekly cycle counts? Are we cleaning and dusting the areas on a daily basis in parts and checking to make sure that we don't have negative on hand? So as I cover some of these, and we can go into a bunch of different areas of the company, but those basic building block practices that we need to be doing on a daily and weekly basis in order to have a really good process and system activities. Those are the things that in the pandemic, in the heights of it, we got away from in some cases because it got so busy. Our people were just firefighting and trying to fix what was right in front of them. So we got to get back to those best practices. So in the last 3 weeks, I actually visited I visited 9 stores in the last 3 weeks. And what I can say is it's mixed. In some stores, a lot of these best practices are being utilized, and that was great to see. And in some stores, there's a lot of work to do. So as the management team and as teammates within these stores, we really got to know our best practice, our handbooks, right? Do you have a copy of your handbook, or is one accessible for your particular department, whether it's sales, F&I, parts and service, administrative? And are we utilizing what's in there, or are we still winging it? If we're winging it, it's time to get back to those basics, and you can utilize your resources, whether it's a handbook or your regional team or your directors. And then the last piece I wanted to cover today was on our core value of teamwork. So one of the pieces of the core value of teamwork talks about positive, open, and clear communications. One of the actions. If you read it, it's a whole bunch of language in there, but then talks about positive, open, and clear communications. And one of the things that some of the leadership has noticed is that It's hard to have positive and then open and clear communications electronically. So what we see is sometimes managers or teammates will send a message on email or Teams or something. And the challenge there is that if it's very directive or if it's trying to correct an unfavorable action or behavior on the part of a teammate, tone, and obviously there's no body language, but tone is incredibly difficult to tell. And then there's no body language at all. And the fact is that tone and body language make up about 80% of communication. That's what studies have shown. It's actually more than that, but tone and body language make up a ton. So one of the things that society has gone to is more electronic communication. Well, that's really difficult to tell tone and to make sure that it comes across in a positive, open, and clear way. So this is just a reminder for everybody. If we're going to be addressing the, very directive, addressing unfavorable actions and whatnot, electronic communication is fantastic as a follow-up, right? So you have that communication verbally or in person. And then the follow-up is the action steps that you're looking to accomplish, because it becomes that checklist to kind of go through. But the first conversation, if it's a very negative message and it's a negative message via email or via Teams or chat or something like that, that's the wrong communication method for that sort of issue. We need to be going to some sort of means where at least we can tell tone, which would be a phone call or something, or body language is even better. In person, Teams if you can't make it there. So just a reminder for everybody, in order for us to reinforce our favorable culture, and we do have a pretty good culture here at Campers Inn, those unfavorable conversations, those tough conversations, those very directive ones, it's very difficult to have tone come across in them if it's all electronic. So we recommend that even if it's a quick phone call saying, hey, I noticed this and this, we need to be addressing this behavior, some conversation back and forth, and I'm going to send you a list of what needs to happen. That'll come across much better than trying to emphasize tone electronically. So that was a reminder. There's a few instances that some of the leadership and I were talking about across the company. This is a societal thing, right? So a lot of society is going towards more digital electronic communications. So internally as a company, we got to protect our culture and the way that we do it. So I know I'm going to end this. I know I'm getting close to 20 minutes, which is way too long, but I say that every time. I'm going to end this on a positive note, because I don't want the tone of the message that I'm putting out is that with inventory corrections, looking at financial sustainability and making sure that we're being frugal, the best practices. I don't want it to be a negative message overall. That's actually not the intent here. Is that the reality is business is still pretty good. Our company is still doing very well. Our culture is still really strong, and our leadership team is really strong, and we've had very little turnover in our leadership team. So there's a lot of awesome things going on as a company. But we all know the best of times sometimes create bad habits. And we are now in the process of breaking some of those bad habits and ensuring that we have a great company with a great culture for the long term. And we have a few adjustments we have to make. We got to adjust our inventory to the market, get our turns up. And I could explain the whole reason why turns are important, but it's good for aged inventory. Customers get more fresh inventory, less lot rot, better floor plans, yada, yada, all sorts of great things, right? But we also have to make sure that in uncertain times, I wouldn't say it's like a horrible time out there economically, it's just uncertain. We have to be financially frugal. That makes sense. And then we have to make sure that we're taking advantage of every opportunity and having the best practice implementation possible. So it's so I'm actually in a really positive and upbeat mood. But at the same time, there are some things that we have to be looking at and addressing now. So with that being said, I'll kind of end it with July's looking pretty good overall. When we look at July compared to May and June, it looks like it's going to be an uptick month. We'll see where we end up. But really positive about the remainder of the year. And I appreciate everybody on the team for listening to this message, and have a great rest of your July. Thanks, everybody. Bye.